So thank you again for everyone that is joining us. I know a couple additional folks have joined us as well. And I'm just so excited to have you here. So thank you so much. As I said before, my name is Kara McClanahan, and I am the CEO and Executive Consultant at Aesthetic Practice Partners. And we are co-hosted this afternoon by Shannon Blake with Podium. She's going to be joining us here shortly to jump in and talk about all things lead management. I also have a couple members of my team from Aesthetic Practice Partners on here with us, so we should be able to make sure that we address all of your questions. Now, we have a lot to talk about today, and so I don't want to waste a lot of time talking about us, but I do want to share a little bit about Aesthetic Practice Partners and who we are. As some of you may have gotten an email, you may have seen something on social, but maybe you don't know who APP is. I have had the privilege of being in this amazing industry for 30 years. I spent the first half of my career managing medical aesthetics practices just like yours, small, medium, large, all kinds of sizes. And I truly have a passion for the operational side of aesthetics. And I know that there's a huge gap out there for those of you that hold MDs and NPs and advanced provider credentials. My guess is they did not hand out MBAs and other in-depth business training with those clinical degrees. As a matter of fact, I know they didn't. And when you rush out to open a medical aesthetics business, there is this huge wake-up call one day when you realize the practice of medicine in aesthetics and the practice of business in aesthetics are vastly different than traditional healthcare. We are part hospitality, we are part retail, we are all things customer service, but we are still medicine. And so through my experience in working with medical aesthetics practices, I found such a need out there to help partner and grow. I have also had the fortune of being on the industry side, having worked with skincare companies, medical device companies in a variety of different roles, including VP of sales. I saw a very different vantage, a different viewpoint of medical aesthetics practices and what type of support they needed to be successful. So thus, that is how APP was created. And I'm just extremely passionate about helping medical aesthetics practices grow. Many of you may or may not be familiar with Podium. At Aesthetic Practice Partners, we strive really, really hard to partner with only the best companies that have the best products, services, technology, and the company support and representatives to help support our practices. And we only work with the best of the best. Podium has been a partner that we've worked with for a very long time. And I won't spend a ton of time talking about Podium and who they are because they're joining us and they will be able to do that themselves. But we are excited because Podium has also just launched the very first AI-powered operating system to help you elevate your practice. So if you know what Podium is today, you need to find out what Podium Aesthetic is, and they're going to share with you a little bit about that. So enough of our commercial break and paying the sponsors, if you will. Let's get into some quick housekeeping. Please, please, please ask questions anytime you like. We want you to use the chat feature throughout the session. We'll address any questions as we can. We do actually have a Q&A break, but put your questions in there. We'll answer them in real time. We'll answer them throughout, or we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. We do also have a 10-minute bio or coffee break about midway through, but I encourage you, if you don't need to utilize that break, to step away for a few minutes to chat in the chat section and ask questions. That's what we're going to be here for. So a lot of interaction is what we're hoping for today's conversation. And I know that we have a mix of providers, business owners, as well as front desk folks and team members and other team members in the practice on with us as well. Make sure that everyone has questions answered from their vantage point or position in the practice. Those of you that registered are aware that there was some great perks coming with the webinar, just not getting to listen to me here talk for 3 hours and Shannon share with you all about lead management, but completing at the conclusion of our webinar on Wednesday. So there's 2 sessions, identical sessions, one today and one on Wednesday. At the conclusion of Wednesday's session, you will be sent your resource guide. So this resource guide is a very large document. I think it's like 7 to 10 pages. It has scripts, it has templates, it has a whole bunch of tips, tricks, checklists, and everything that you need to follow up from and take what you learned today to implement in your practice, as well as all of the practices that stay on for the live. We'll get a secret shopper experience report courtesy of Podium, and all of the practices that are on the live and stay on for the full session will also be entered in to win a exclusive lunch and learn session with me in either in your practice or virtually. It just depends on the where you're located and how we can make that happen. So it will either be a virtual hosted lunch and learn sponsored by APP or an in-office lunch and learn sponsored by APP with 4 hours of staff training. And we'll talk about what that looks like as well. So a lot of great opportunities to participate in the event. So thank you again for joining us, and hopefully you take away a lot of great information that you can implement in your practice right away. Our agenda for today is pretty deep, but also pretty simple, right? It's all about the front desk journey, really diving into mindset as well as mastering that first impression, having confident communications, lead management, hospitality systems, and some advanced strategies. We'll also be talking a little bit about exactly how you can implement these ideas in your practice as well. So again, we're super excited that you're here and joined us, and hopefully everybody takes away a lot of great information from today's webinar. We're going to jump in and talk, like I said, all about front desk excellence. So we know that your reception team, your front desk team, your ambassadors, whatever you choose to call them in your practice, they are the heartbeat of your practice. And we ask those front desk teams to do a lot of things. It's probably, as a consultant, one of the things that when I walk into a practice, I recognize is the biggest challenge within the practice, that this is customer service central. Not only are we answering the phones, we're answering digital communication nowadays. We've got patients walking in, walking out. We have providers that need us. We have reps that want to talk to us. And our front desk is our command center. And so I think that one of the biggest takeaways that I hope you all as managers and business owners have after this call is exactly how important your front desk team and how celebrated they should be, but also how supported they should be, because we're asking them to do a heavy load in our practices. Our front desk teams have to do so many things, right? So they're answering phones, they're scheduling appointments while they're greeting patients that are walking in, and we expect them to be perky and happy and personable and have all of the answers. We also are managing our patient records and our intake forms. That should be a whole poll unto itself, is how complicated our intake form or process is that we're asking our front desk team to go track down the information. But we're also asking them to process payments accurately, making sure they issue points, redeem points, explain costs to our patients, all while they're, again, coordinating our clinical teams, sending out appointment reminders, doing all of their follow-ups, booking their future appointments, and addressing patient concerns. And of course, we also want them to sell. I don't know who wants to sell them to retain skincare. I think that's supposed to be retail skincare. And apparently I don't edit my own slides. But again, we want them to be the queens of retail skincare. So we're really asking our front desk team members to do a lot of things. And at the end of the day, if we are not setting them up for success, setting the right expectation and training them properly, we're going to be miserably let down in performance, and they're going to be extremely overwhelmed. And I always start here with this conversation because it is so valid when we're talking about our pain points and our areas of concern and what we see that we want our front desk to be doing better. So let's really be thinking about, what do we have our front desk teams doing? Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that everything serves the business purpose as well as the patient's patient outcomes. And that might be if you listed a lot of issues on, if you were one of those that clicked all of the above on the pain points, we probably need to sit back and look at how are we setting that team up for success? What are we really truly expecting from them? And how can we ensure that they are going to be extremely successful in their role? Because at the end of the day, first impressions do really, really, truly define everything. Anybody who knows me, if any of you on this call know me in person, or we've met through conferences, if you've seen me speak in any industry conference, or I've been in your practice, you've heard me say everything is built on data. So when I talk about anything and I talk about all these challenges and with the practice and everything else, I'm adding data behind it. This isn't just Carafacts. This isn't just, I think we should do this. This is all based on data. So when I say things like first impressions define everything, there's an actual data point to support that. As a matter of fact, data shows us that 86% of decisions are based on the first interaction. Research shows that 86% of patients base their provider choice on their first interaction. This could be a phone call, text message, how things happen when they call the office. And I know that we want to assume that if a patient was referred by another patient, that, they were referred to that provider. Or maybe if they're choosing a dermatology or plastic surgery practice or another physician-led practice or even aesthetic provider-led practice, that they're choosing that practice because of us. That's what we want to think. They're choosing us because of our marketing, because of our reputation, because of how amazing we kill it on Instagram and everybody wants to be part of our practice. But deeper research shows that that's simply part of the process, that they ultimately make their decision to join our practice based on interaction. When they call the office and ask their questions or schedule their consultation, they get a wonderful response. They're greeted nicely. They have this experience that makes them want to be part of your practice. Your front desk team holds remarkable power, right? Because in those phone calls, they can inspire confidence and trust within seconds. But they can also inspire fear and concern and send those potential patients right down the street to your competitors. This is actual data that we've collected directly from aesthetic patients in the marketplace. So I'm not guessing, I'm not just throwing things out there. And all of our practices have individual caveats or maybe different percentages. This is in mass, and a lot of research has gone in to show us consumer behaviors. So we have to make every single touch point matter. We have to make every single phone call, every text message, email, in-person greeting, all of the things that truly contribute to our patient's perception of our practice with professionalism and sharing that care that they're going to get when they walk in their doors, because we know that patients that have a well-oiled machine, a top-rated front desk, have increased retention in their practice. Again, these aren't just my thoughts. They're not just my guesses. This is research that we've seen through multiple different studies done with multiple different partners throughout the industry. And this data tells us how powerful our front desk is. Our front desk can define the experience for the patients, but also let's take this one step further. And I don't have a data point in here for this, but I certainly have a discussion point, is our front desk sets the tone for how we as clinicians go about our day. Think about it. If our appointments are scheduled properly, our reminder calls have been done, our patients enrolled in our membership programs on our way in versus on the way out. They're in there for the right treatment, the right amount of time. We've already confirmed all of their intake paperwork has been completed. As a provider, That makes your time much more efficient, and you have the ability to really, really focus on your patient care. If we're running behind because our appointments aren't scheduled properly, we didn't check our intake paperwork, all of those things that we did right to set us up for success, if our front desk didn't do those things, then how does that impact your day as a provider? We know that not only do they impact our patient's experience, but they impact our operating experience as well. That is how important your front desk is. That is how important it is to make sure that you have those super, super well-oiled machine at the front desk so that you know that you're set up for success. Your providers are set up for success because your front desk is also your revenue engine. Not only do they contribute to higher retention rates, but retention impacts our bottom line. We know that. But every interaction counts, right? So from that first phone call to the checkout of that treatment, your front desk shapes the entire patient experience. As we just talked about, them shaping your experience. If you're frazzled, if you're running behind, if things aren't done properly and consents aren't signed and we're having to go back up front, that delays treatment. We know that these things contribute to patients changing providers because you weren't set up for success and you didn't give your best at that moment to that patient. We know that this impacts how they are influenced to return back to the practice when they refer friends, if they join our loyalty programs, when they become our brand ambassadors in the practice. All of these things contribute to that. Right. And there are multiple touch points that primarily our front desk teams are responsible for. Now, every single practice is different. And from very, very small practices to very, very large practices, there are a lot of different touch points that happen in a lot of different ways. Some practices use a lot of AI and automation. Some practices are true hardcore old school. I'm picking up the phone every single time and calling that patient. It doesn't matter where you fall in that spectrum. The reality is, recognize the touch points in your practice that your front desk team is involved in, right? So whether it's the phone calls for appointments and their scheduling, I have a lot of practices that a majority of their scheduling is done online because they drive all of their patients to schedule online. But there's still going to be conversations with patients, whether that's new patient inquiries that ends in a consultation being scheduled or what have you. Obviously, there's our text message reminders and confirmations. And again, AI can automate some of this, but there's a lot of human element that is still involved. Email follow-ups, in person, all of these things and these touch points are opportunities to both build and break trust within your practice. And simple things like just not having the right information or giving a wrong cost or making a small mistake on an appointment scheduling. Other data tells us that it takes one mistake, one bad patient experience for patients to decide that they'd maybe like to try the provider down the road. And I know a lot of the practices that are on may not be the traditional aesthetic practice. This doesn't apply just to aesthetic practices because anytime a consumer, a client, a patient, whatever you call them in your practice, is paying dollars out of their own pocket by choice, not because they have to, there's a lot of different choices. It doesn't matter if you're purely aesthetics, plastics, derm, or wellness. Now with medical weight loss and everything else out there, these are elective services that, let's be honest, our patients can actually get anywhere. They can order treatments online. We don't encourage it. We don't necessarily want them to. We want them walking in our doors. They can pick up skincare at Sephora, Ulta, Target, Walgreens, CVS. I'm pretty sure there's a Chevron station somewhere that sells skincare. The reality is that we have to own these touch points in our practice. And what makes us different is us. Because Botox is Botox is Botox. Wherever you get a neurotoxin, it does the same thing. It paralyzes muscles and it diminishes fine lines and wrinkles. but who administers that and the experience that patients get when they walk in your door is what makes a difference. That's why we have to focus so much on driving patient experience. And that starts with your front desk customer service ambassadors at your front desk. Because growth only happens through excellence. We grow when we excel. We increase our bookings, have higher treatment and acceptance rates. Obviously, we pre-schedule more appointments, and we keep that steady stream of both referrals and patients walking back in our door. And so, if there is a driver of revenue in your practice, if we were to train your front desk, might sit up the front, but they're definitely your caboose, right? So be thinking about how they're truly, truly driving that patient experience in your practice. And I like to do that by showing what a patient experience looks like. What does that patient experience look like? I think that that's really, really important for every single person in the practice. Every single person in the practice needs to understand, what is that journey? What does that journey in your practice look like? Well, this is high level overview of the different touch points in your practice. So obviously we have an initial inquiry. And again, those could come from a lot of different ways in your practice, meaning those touch points could be, again, digital. They could be a lot of different things. And then you have your appointment setting, of course. And you have your ability, obviously, your scheduling, your appointment scheduling, whether you do it online. Those are touch points through inquiries and communication through other different channels. And then you have all of your pre-appointment communication, because if your patients make an appointment and they have zero contact with your office until they have an appointment, there's a gap, there's a problem right there. I will tell you up front. You want to make sure that between the time your patients have scheduled their appointment before they come in, that you are staying highly engaged with those patients. And we'll talk about that as well. I can't see you all, but you can see me. And if I were to ask you how many of you have stayed at a Four Seasons, raise your hand, but you can't see it. So we're just going to pretend. Don't digitally raise your hand. But Gianna, thank you for raising your hand digitally. But if you stayed at a Four Seasons, what happened? As a matter of fact, Gianna's on my team at Genesis. I'm unmuting you, Gianna. What happens when you schedule your appointment at a Four, or your reservation at a Four Seasons before you arrive?
Well, immediately get a call when I actually schedule. And then when I
Right?
arrive, they meet me at the car. Um,
I love that. They don't meet me at the car.
it's incredible actually. But I also send an email beforehand every
Right.
single time.
Every single time. Thank you, Gianna. I'm going to go ahead and mute you again. But that's right. So they send an email. So she's 100% right. You get a phone call when you make your appointment, even when you make it online, that says, "Thank you, Mrs. McClanahan. Thank you, Mrs. Fusco, for scheduling your reservation at the Four Seasons. We can't wait to see you. How can we customize your treatment?" We don't just let that reservation sit online until Gianna checks in, right? We communicate with her. Then they get an email that's lovely and fluffy and warm, and it makes you so excited for your stay at the Four Seasons. The Holiday Inn has never sent me an email. They've also never called me, right? You want to be the Four Seasons of your practice. And these little touch points are things that help not only keep patients informed, but also reduce no-shows. That communication gets people excited for their appointment. They get people looking forward to it. But what else does that do? What else does that do? That helps personalize your experience, because they're also sending you an appointment that says, do you want to add a spa treatment? Do you want to make a hotel dining reservation? Do you want to have yoga on the roof or have a private chef deliver a curated meal to your suite? these are all add-ons, right? These are all opportunities to continue to grow in your relationship with your patients, even before they walk in the door. And then, of course, there's that day of welcome, and we're going to talk about what that looks like as well. Then our, of course, checkout experience, our post-visit experience, and I spent a lot of time talking about that pre-appointment communication, but we'll talk more about how and why that is so important. But I would encourage you to be thinking about your patient journey. What does the journey that your patient walk through in your practice? And I would encourage you that after this call for you to go back and write it down. And what happens when somebody sends in an inquiry? Who answers the phone? Who answers the email? Where does that text message go? Does it live in a CRM? Am I following up on that? How quickly am I following up on that? What's happening here, there, and everywhere? Take and break down every single one of these steps in your practice so that it becomes very, very easy for you to identify where the gaps are, where the opportunities are, where you can do better, where you're killing it, and you should continue working on that. And walk that journey as if you were a patient. This is the single most important exercise that I would say any of my practices do and do well is it's kind of like an internal audit of your patient journey, and it helps you really understand what exactly is going on in the practice. It helps you take an objective look because you don't do it very, very often, and it helps you refine your patient journey. I'm going to take a sip of water real quick. In addition to this straight 3 hours of talking, I've pretty much been doing it since 7 o'clock this morning. So I will go horse on us at some point in time today. All right. So, chapter 2. Now that we've talked about breaking down the patient experience and what you need to do to fully understand it, I really, really encourage you all to take that hospitality mindset, really understand what this means. Because, as I said before, where we are today in aesthetics, we are not just medicine. We are the pretty side of medicine, but it is still medicine. So there is a lot of things that we need to do to make sure that we're adhering to that. We're not really retail, but we have a retail component to our business. And we are all things hospitality. And I would encourage you to highly adopt a hospitality mindset in your clinic. Whether it's, again, that Four Seasons, which we will be talking a little bit more about, or just the idea of what hospitality really is, the idea of what a hospitality mindset means for treating every single patient like a valued guest at your 5-star med spa. I have my own Five Seasons story, and some of you may have heard it. But I've had the opportunity also to stay at the Four Seasons. I think I just said Five Seasons. I combined 5-star and Four Seasons, so Five Seasons. No. I've been not only able to stay at a Four Seasons, I have actually taken the Four Seasons Executive Leadership for Healthcare's training. And in this training, they don't tell you where you're going. You enroll and you get put into a cohort, and there are anywhere between 5 and 10 executives, and you just know that you're going to stay at a Four Seasons for this experience. And they tell you about a week ahead of how to pack. That's your first indication of where you're going. Maybe it's mountainous, maybe you need tennis shoes, maybe it's tropical, what have you. They tell you how to pack. Well, I ended up, and then you find out the day before where you're going. So I ended up in Costa Rica at the Four Seasons in Costa Rica. And it was at the end of basketball season, long time ago. Basketball season in my world was a big thing at that time because, husband sports, those things. And I ended up at the Four Seasons in Costa Rica, and they have you check in. You don't see the rest of your cohort. You don't know if the girl standing next to you is part of your training or any of the other guests, but you check in just like a regular hotel guest. They want you to experience it. And as I'm checking into the Four Seasons, there's a ton of commotion behind me. And that commotion, I finally turned around because it was a lot. And there standing behind me is Michael Jordan. And this was in the day and age when Michael Jordan was still playing. And I looked down the line And every single person, the associates that were assisting clients walking into that Four Seasons, they were not fazed by Michael Jordan. It's not because he came every weekend and they were used to seeing him, but because their mindset is the person in front of me is the most important person. You get all of my attention, and I'm creating emotional connections, and I am delivering, I love this, delight at every single touch point. But this is actually their mindset. They have Four Seasons. Their whole mindset is to anticipate the needs of our clients, create emotional connections, and deliver delight at every single touch point. And that's really that hospitality mindset that I want my teams to have, that I want my clients to have, that we strive to have across the Genesis organization, and why we connect with patients on a totally different level. Because again, Kara Science Nerd Facts, going back to that, 70% of patients saying that friendly staff, empathetic staff is their number one loyalty driver. So, as much as we want to pat ourselves on the back for all of our great marketing and coming up with that amazing loyalty membership program that we think drives thousands of patients in our door, this is the reason why they come back to our practice. The reality is, it's not. They come back because they feel safe, they feel taken care of, they feel cared for in your practice. And that's the difference between a hospitality mindset, because everyone has seen this saying by Maya Angelou, people always will forget what you said, but they'll never forget what you did, and they'll never forget how you made them feel. And that's really, again, that hospitality mindset that we want to have in our med spas and our aesthetic practices every single day. Focus on that. And again, with that mindset shift into how you can be thinking about how does this apply to what we do? Well, let's learn from hospitality leaders. There are some very things that we can really take away from some of these leaders that want to have they want to have empowered treatments and experiences in your clinic. So let's learn from some of those experts. Give me just 1 second. I'm trying to multitask and let someone in that's having a problem getting in. Sorry about that. All right. So the Ritz-Carlton. So let's talk about the Ritz-Carlton standard. The Ritz-Carlton standard is pretty simple, right? Their line is that they are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. That's their philosophy. They're treating every single patient as a lady and gentleman, right? So they stand up when you walk in. Their philosophy empowers every single employee to have the autonomy to rectify situations. They are known for allowing every employee, from the bellhop to the maid to the general manager to the bartender, it doesn't matter what position they are in the practice. Every employee is empowered to spend $2,000 to solve a guest problem without ever having to ask for it. Now, that sounds daunting, right? Like it would be really challenging for us to give every single one of our employees an allotment of, say, $2,000 to fix a problem. But what if we started simple? What if we were allowing, empowering our team members, particularly our front desk, the autonomy and the power to ensure that every patient's experience was stellar? And if it wasn't, that they were allowed to step up and handle that problem. Because often what happens at the front desk is we don't give them that power. They have to go through layers and layers of asking questions, of getting permissions, of writing business cases, standing on their head, blowing bubbles, and wearing a ponytail, and then come and ask for permission to solve a problem. And the reality is we need to empower, because if we hired the right people and we set them up for success, we trained them and gave them the tools, support, and resources to do their job, they shouldn't need our permission to do their job, right? We've done the right thing and we've empowered them to do the right thing by our patients. And that's really the philosophy behind the Ritz-Carlton standard. The caveat there for you, my friends, is you have to train them. You have to hire the right people. You have to give them the tools, support, and resources to do their jobs. And then allow them to do their jobs. And maybe if they have too much empowerment and things go off the rails, you have to have the capability of bringing it back on board. But the Ritz-Carlton standard and the purpose of empowerment is because they've done just that. They've hired the right people, they've taken the time to onboard them properly, and they know the guardrails in which they live to make sure that they're providing optimal service to our patients. What an amazing world that would be, right? In a world that we were able to really truly be able to support our practices, support our patients through our employees. And Uriel shared that he strongly feels at the front desk person needs to have confidence. And I could not agree more. I think that that is so important. In order for us to empower everyone in their positions, we have to give them the training. We have to give them the confidence. And confidence comes from knowing your products, knowing your treatments, knowing your services, and all of these things. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So the Four Seasons, again, we talked about the Four Seasons just a moment ago, but their golden rule is treat others as you wish to be treated. And that really guides every single interaction. And there is a lot of training that goes into, I training the staff on how to remember guest preferences, anticipate needs, and create personalized experiences that build loyalty. And my friends, there is nothing at the fingertips of all of the employees at Four Seasons that you do not have in your med spa, because you have a CRM, you have an EMR. If you're lucky, you have both. And if you're really lucky, they're integrated into one. So you have the ability to go back and look and see what has Kara done in the past. You have the ability to make notes. If the front desk girl knows that I'm cray cray busy all the time and I'm rushing in and I got my phone in one hand and my laptop in another and I'm checking in and I'm probably taking a conference call from the lobby, she should probably make that note in the system so that you guys can navigate around that. Or maybe somebody says, "Hey, Kara, while you're here this time, why don't you have a nice cup of tea and slow down?" Right? Those are experiences that make a difference. When we know what our guest preferences are, when we know what skincare they've purchased in the past, we can make recommendations. When we know Kara needs that cup of tea because she really needs to chill out and sit down and have some green tea, then you can hand that to me at the front desk, right? And you guys have 100 Karas in your guys' practice. But these are the things that really, really, truly create those personalized experiences and build loyalty. These little unique factors are what make your practice you. It's the small touches, from the cucumber water, right, to greeting your patients by name. Again, virtual raise of hands. You don't have to actually raise your little hands in the system, or you can do it over here and we can't see you, but you should know your patients by name. And if you don't, beyond the first visit, that means you're not using the feature in your EMR that allows you to store their photo, because most systems allow you to store the photo, and on the scheduler, if you hover over it, that patient's name, the photo pops up, so you don't have to remember by time everybody that's walking in. I'm not a big believer in like, hey, you have to use my name 5 times in your conversation, but as Gianna said, in her experience the Four Season, they met her at the front door. They actually knew she was coming. For a while, I kind of thought BMW had a weird tracker on my car, because it was the same thing. I would pull into the service station and the adorable little 17-year-old kid would run over to my door and be like, "Hey, Mrs. McClanahan, we're so happy you're here to service your car. Here's a bottle of water." And he gives me the rundown. And I'm like, I had not even said my name. So facial recognition, license plate recognition, whatever is going on there. But they knew that. They knew when I pulled in and there were 7 other cars there, they couldn't just figure it out I was the one there for service. They remember those little things. You have an opportunity to remember previous treatments. You don't even have to remember, it's at the touch of your hands, right? You could be showing genuine interest in the service, products, treatments, everything that your patients have had. But if you don't get to know your patients, and if you don't create these emotional connections, you would not have the ability to use those tools at your fingertips to set that Ritz-Carlton standard of ABC Med Spa, to create your own Four Seasons golden rule at XYZ Med Spa. But you should. We should take all of these things that we've learned from hospitality and figure out how do we integrate them into our practice. How do you take hospitality principles and really transform our patient experience? I went over all of this just a moment ago. You can anticipate the needs of your patients. Make sure that you are using the tools at your fingertips to answer their questions and to offer assistance before they ask. If somebody has to ask you a question because you haven't addressed them or acknowledged them, we have a problem, my friend. And Jessica, you are so right. Clients will always appreciate the smallest gesture in their care plans, remembering those little details and what you discussed when you interacted with them. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, those are huge things for them, right? They know when you remember something as small as, I got a new puppy, or I'm changing jobs, or I just got back from vacation, right? Here's one that I added to this because I actually thought it was a really cute little perk. It doesn't come from a med spa, but I was visiting a business and they called to confirm my time. And they said, you know what? I know that you're traveling from out of town. So make sure that you check the weather ahead of time because it's raining here. And I know that you're coming from Arizona. And sure as shit, it's like she read my mind because I am notorious for going somewhere outside of Arizona and forgetting that y'all don't have weather like Arizona. So I show up in Kansas and I'm wearing, a dress and heels and open toes. And the strongest out weather thing I have is like my little blankie I carry on my airplane. So I'm like wrapped around in it because I'm the girl from Arizona that forgot to check the weather. Or if it is raining, having a place where they can store their wet coat. If you live in Seattle where there's lots of rain, you know that that's going to happen. Those are those little anticipations, right? Those are those little ways that we can actually use hospitality principles in our practice and creating those emotional connections with our patients, remembering those details, celebrating their results. At Genesis, we do a lot of medical weight loss and recognizing even 2, 3, 5, but significant pounds of weight loss. Those are mile markers. Significant other goals in their off. If you're in a medical aesthetics practice that does a lot of laser, I mean, nobody's going to fully ablate their face off and put themselves through that if they weren't like literally concerned about what's going on. So when they come back in for their follow up, make sure that you recognize, what a great outcome that they've had, how amazing they look to reinstill that confidence. Those are all just little clues that help us create those emotional connections. And of course, always making eye contact and smiling, even if you're on the phone. There is absolutely nothing worse than walking into a business and somebody's just staring at you like, yeah, what do you want? Right? No smile, no eye contact. I'm just over here chatting on my phone, or I'm on the phone helping another patient without even acknowledging. Like, those are the things that really obviously set the tone for not great patient experience. But when you're able to really connect with your patients and smile, use your words, use your eyes, and really, really ensuring that we're connecting with patients. And again, that delight word, delighting at every single touch. Handwritten notes, personal greetings, all of the things that are really, really important to us as human beings. That's what we should be doing to others. Does anybody know? And if you know the answer to this, I want you to unmute. But does anybody know anywhere near the percentage of drop off that Bed Bath or Bath and Body Works got when they stopped issuing the mail to your house coupons and tried to save money and just go to digital coupons? Does anybody know the answer to that? I'm going to give you just a second. Years ago, if anybody is a Bath and Body Works junkie like I am, because I have every plug-in soap, body wash, lotion, and everything, they used to send coupons to your house every single month. And you would get the coupons to your house, and then you would run into the store and spend your coupon. So in the digital age, um, they decided for a while that they were going to go to digital only coupons. So now you only get them text messaged or emailed. Nobody answered, so I'm going to tell you. The answer was they had over a 70% decline in redemption. So those coupons fell off 70% because people weren't checking their email, number one, as much. But number two, they weren't as special. Even though I know every woman in the world that shops at Victoria's Secret got free panties or $15 off their bra that month, when I got that coupon in the mail, I felt special. And I took my little coupon and I walked in and I bought more stuff at Victoria's Secret. And that was the reality. Those little teeny tiny touch points, us women are very tactile. We want someone to send us a thank you note, a birthday card, or go that extra mile. So they re implemented that program and they saw an increase of almost 60% immediate redemption. That shows that card in the mail, that tactile piece of paper, made a difference. And it also felt personalized because even though I know every other woman got one, and by the way, Bath and Body Works and Victoria's Secret are owned by the same company. That's why they have some coupons. And I kind of went back and forth between both of them. But every woman in the world got it. But guess what? This one had my name on the card. That was my coupon. Those were my free panties or my free soap or my $15 off a bra. And I used that for my next purchase. So you can see the correlation of personalization and just those little teeny tiny touches. At Genesis, one of the things that we do is write handwritten notes after patients come in and we mail them to their houses. And I'm willing to bet, again, there's little touches like that that you guys do within your clinics. But if you're not, adopting those behaviors are one way to really create that hospitality mindset. I stay at a Marriott every single time I travel. I can't afford to stay at a Four Seasons every single time I travel. But I almost always have some type of basket in my room that has a handwritten card to Mrs. McClanahan and thank you for being whatever, whatever status, and bottled water, and usually some nuts and sometimes some other things. But almost every single time I stay at a Marriott, this happens. And now I'm looking forward to it because I just keep selecting, like I'm stockpiling Marriott swag. And I'm never going to do anything with that Marriott swag. As a matter of fact, I got like a little bento box last time I was there. Never going to use it, probably ever. But I love it and I put it on my shelf and it means something to me because their attention to detail is why I have loyalty to that brand. And consistency is the biggest part of that because it doesn't do you any good to do all of these great things every once in a while, right? It doesn't do any good to do these little teeny tiny things. It'll give us a little push, but then once you slack off, people will notice that even more. And then it becomes a matter of, it used to be, oh, they used to do this. Oh, they don't do this anymore. And so when you meet with your clients and you give them that compliment, I love that, Uriel. That's also a Tiffany and a Chanel thing. When you walk into a Tiffany or a Chanel store, it's a compliment. It's your hair. I always feel so good. If you need an ego boost, just go walk into Tiffany because you're going to have the cutest shoes, your makeup's on point, your hair is amazing, that outfit's awesome, and oh my gosh, you smell so good. And even though I know that they're trained to do those things, when it is with sincerity and it is needed, it does make that impression, that unforgettable impression. As Uriel said, I completely agreed. Those are the things that make a difference to us as human beings. And these are the things that really, really, again, empower this, hospitality principles. And when you adopt these principles, you're creating memories that they won't soon forget. Now, for the front desk in context of this, they are responsible for a lot of those principles that we were just talking about. Even though managers and owners need to help implement them, we know that the person executing a lot of those or delivering a lot of those moments does come from our front desk team. So we really, really have to master these first impressions, whether it's phone, text, or in person. We know that you have to win at that first impression because that's where that relationship is built. You know that you've heard it said, smile when you speak because you know they can hear it. And it is so true. being energetic, not feeling frenzied, not hearing like you're all frenzied. They don't know what's going on behind you. They don't know if you've got someone checking in, someone checking out, a provider standing there and needing something, someone's asking questions about their paperwork, and if they really need to list all 19 medicines and 43 surgeries they'd have, while you're trying to answer the phone and be cheerful. And you really, really do have to master that. It's a balance of being present and being, able to multitask as well, because it gets really, really hard to do all things at the front desk. And we know that we have to do it. We have to do it well. And my friends, we have to do it quick. And so we know that that's important to patients. So, with that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about why lead management, which is that first impression kickstart, is so important. And it's not just about speed, while it is, it's about thoroughness, it's about speed, it's about action, but it's also about being proficient, right? So you can't just be quick, you have to be quick and proficient in all of those things. And so, with that being said, we are going to kick it over to my girl Shannon at Podium. And I am going to stop sharing my screen here. And Shannon is going to share her screen, and she's going to talk to us all about lead management and why it's so important to not just be quick, but be efficient, and what systems and processes will help you do that.
All
All right,
right.
girl,
Hi,
take it
Kara.
away.
Thank you. All right. Can you guys, or actually, hold. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Amazing. And hi, all of you. I will introduce myself in just a second, but I just wanted to add something. I almost raised my hand to see if Kara would let me pipe in early, but she was talking about surprise and delight, and I just want to double down on this because it's funny enough. I work for Podium, and we're an AI company, and so it's funny for this comment to come out of my mouth. But in a world of AI, you guys are probably feeling this. There's a lot of us wondering like what's real, even being online, even like photos, information. There's just this AI movement is causing us to experience a lot of fake and not knowing what's real in this world. And so when Kara was talking about surprise and delight, and it's those little things and those in-person connections and relationships, like y'all, those matter so much more now than even 5 years ago. We are going to be so hungry for real that all of those things Kara's talking about are going to be absolutely necessary to win in this space, truly. Like for me, I'm a client, a consumer in this space, and my local med spa that I trust with my services is True Med Spa. And I love when I walk in, it's like I'm going to age myself, but it's like cheers. Everyone knows my name. It's those friendly faces when I walk in. They know me. And when I'm done with my service or treatment, I leave and they know that I love my ice water in their cute little branded cups, and I like my rice chips with sour cream and onion, and it's waiting for me when I go to the counter to check out, and I look forward to it after every treatment. And it is just those little things that they even remember that I love that stuff and that it's ready for me when I leave. And so anyway, I just wanted to add that. And Kara, thank you for putting this on as well. I'm very passionate about this topic because in my role at Podium, which I will go to the next slide so you guys can see my intro. So I manage our partnerships at Podium, but part of my role is I am lucky enough to get to go and meet with our clients in office, in their practice, and sit with their front desk because part of my role is helping understand and build tech for the front desk, for the providers, for the owners, and making sure that it's modern and it's useful and it's saving time. And just getting the opportunity to go and sit with the front desk and see everything that they have to take on and master, it's wild. And sadly, in a lot of cases, people's front desk are not as efficient as they could be. They don't take their job as seriously as they probably should. They don't understand all the value that they could be providing if they cared a little bit more. And then there's other practices, and I'm like, wow, they've really nailed it. And it's usually coming down to like clear expectations. But, anyways, just very familiar with the front desk role, and I'm excited to be involved in this. Thank you for inviting me, Kara. There's so much, as you know, that she's covering today on just mastering that front desk role. The piece that I want to really double down on is going to be the speed to lead aspect, because I'm sure many of you are probably feeling the, traditional med spa service side of your business is down in revenue. Some of you, that may not be the case, and that's amazing. But I think I heard recently overall med spa services were down 1% year over year, and wellness was up 35%. So anyway, I think everyone's just feeling it. They're feeling, the impact that it's had on revenue lately. And maybe you're asking yourselves, like, why? What am I doing wrong? Like, why is my revenue down overall? And one of the key pieces and what's being overlooked in a lot of cases is just the speed in which you're getting back to all your leads and how you are how what your process is in like being able to even track all your leads, for example. So I'm gonna like just dive into that piece of the whole like front desk mastering, since the front desk is generally who is managing the leads. So this will probably resonate with you all. I think on average, practices are spending the best practice is around 7 to 10% on marketing spend of what you're bringing in revenue. Is that about what you coach to, Kara, with your clients? About a 7 to
It
10%?
depends on the stage of the practice. So my newer practices, 0 to 3 years, it might be on the higher end, if not slightly higher, clearly because of percentage of revenue. But also because you need to put more marketing spend to gain market awareness. And then my more established practices that are well-oiled machines that have good retention, that have good referrals and stable client base might be on the lower end. So it does average out to 7 to 10%. But I like always people to know like what the spectrum looks like.
Love that context. Thank you. Yeah, and you're wanting probably anywhere from 3 to 5% return on that ROI. And so some critical components to that is how are you tracking all your leads? Are you able to consolidate all your leads? And how fast are you getting back to all those leads? So this is the silent conversion killer. If you've ever heard me talk, I talk until I'm blue in the face about this one. Slow responses. Y'all, your clients and your prospects and your leads are living in a world of instant gratification. If you are not fast, we're going to talk a little bit more about this later. If you are not fast, you are losing them to a competitor. So it is just so critical that you have processes and tech in place to be able to keep up with consumer expectations. I want everyone, if you'll take just a minute, will you go into the chat? Kara, do you want them doing it through this poll or can they just write in on chat?
You can just write it on chat.
Let's do that. I would love to
Yeah,
hear from everyone.
yeah, I'm going to type the poll up. Let's write in on the chat, but let me type it up because we can actually get the answers collated. But go ahead and walk through it and I'll do that while we're doing it.
Okay, amazing. Okay, so I want you all to think, and it's okay if you don't have like you don't have this tracked, so maybe you don't know, but I want you to give like your gut. How fast on average are you responding to new leads? And I want you to respond to this question for your during business hours, because next I'm going to ask you how fast on average you're responding to leads after business hours, which we know is a completely different story usually. So take just a second. Everyone pop into the chat for a moment. I don't know if I can see the chat while I'm in this phrase, so you might have to look at them, Kara, and tell us what people
I
are
can
putting
see
in.
it.
So everyone pop in. This is during business hours. What's your average, would you say, to how fast you're getting back to leads? And if you're unsure, type unsure. That's a totally fair answer. You're not alone in that. Some folks do not have a way to track this, and that's a problem in itself, but
Look, you're talking about speed to lead. I am talking about speed typing because I just launched that. So instead of using the chat, everyone use the poll.
oh, look at you. Wicked fast speed. All right. 5 minutes, 1 hour, 3 to 6 hours within 24 hours. I want this to be during business hours. So the lead comes in, whether it's a lead that came in through Facebook or an Instagram ad or a Google ad, or maybe they just came in through your website.
We have 8 people that haven't answered. So Shannon, while we're giving those now 7 people time to answer. So before you talk about this, let me ask you this, because again, everyone has different capabilities. Would you say that everyone has the capability of answering promptly regardless of the tech, or do you think the tech is a contributor to it?
Oh, the tech is absolutely a contributor to it. We
So
have
us old school girls that just like want to answer the phone and we don't have any tech, this is why they're taking such a long time, right?
Well, and a lot of these leads, like contact us forms, in most cases, are going into an email inbox. And who's checking the email inbox? And guess what? That email inbox has a bunch of other emails going in. So it's usually going into like info at med spa
Mm-hmm.
name. And so it gets lost in other emails. And so it's just difficult if all of your leads are fragmented in different systems. Maybe your
Mm-hmm.
social
Mm-hmm.
media DMs are showing up in obviously on Instagram or Facebook. Your front desk is having to check a lot of different places and they're trying to check people in, check people out. Like there's a lot of barriers that are causing this to be delayed. But yeah,
Right.
you've got to first and foremost, you have to have the right tech, which we'll talk about in a second to
Yeah.
streamline things.
Yeah. All right. So we're pretty close. So I'm going to give it 30 more seconds if anybody wants to answer. And the poll should be anonymous. So if you didn't want to put it in the main thing, because again, I know that we're all like, if I answer that, I don't want to share that I'm not answering my leads, but please feel free to answer in the poll.
It's a
We're
safe
going to give
space.
this just a
You can
couple
be
more
on it.
seconds.
The good news is
Yeah,
if
it's
it's higher, I think that's that's good news in a sense because there's a lot of
right,
opportunity for you to improve and you will convert
right.
more, drive more revenue. So it's okay if
Yep.
it's not fast today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. So here are the results. Can you all see that?
Yes. Okay. I love this. We at Podium, we attend quite a few conferences and we try to do secret shopper reports for all attendees and then come prepared to hand these out at events. And it's always so fun to see owners where they're like, oh, we're pretty fast. And then we show them their secret shopper reports and they're just like, it's always a longer time than you initially think. But again, that just means more opportunity to increase revenue by being a little bit faster. Okay. Those stats are totally on average, by the way. So that's totally normal. Let's do after hours, Kara. I'm sure you're feverishly typing up the next little survey. Nice job working on
Let
the
me
spot. I love
let
it.
me see if I can just duplicate it.
Okay. So this one's going to be if you are closed and a lead comes in, regardless of where it's coming in from, if it's social media lead or contact us form, maybe you have a chat on your website, maybe they're just texting in because they found your number on GMB page. How fast are you getting back to these leads? And I have the industry averages coming up on a slide if for those of you that are interested in what averages, then you can kind of compare. All right, she's got it ready. This is after business hours. Go ahead and fill that out. Let's see where everyone stands compared to the industry averages. We need like Jeopardy music, Kara.
I know. I had Taylor Swift going earlier for my friend Hillary, who I know is on here.
I love it.
Hillary, if you didn't recognize, we kicked off with Taylor Swift. That was for you, my friend. Yeah, no one wants to hear me sing, so I'll fill it with talking. So Shannon, we know that tech makes a big difference for after hours. How often are you seeing practices actually making them being a staff member, somebody take like a cell phone home or something like that, or just like, we'll get to them tomorrow? What would you say? Like, what do you see more of?
It's get to them tomorrow. Every time we do secret shopper reports, our averages are 8 hours and some change. And it is very clear what's happening. No one's there to answer after hours. Nobody wants to have their staff responding after hours. It's rare that we'll get like an above like overachiever owner who is obsessive and trying to grow their business and they're on an app for whatever system they use. If you're using
Right.
Podium, we have our app, so it makes it easy to reply back after hours, but we
Hmm.
shouldn't have to require that of yourself or of your employees. So we're going to talk about some solutions on how you meet the expectation of the 5 minute response time without having to have your staff or yourself responding. So we'll talk about that here soon.
I love that. I love that.
But
All
yeah, it's
right.
very
Okay.
typical.
So we are at about 30 people answered. So let's go ahead and end the poll here. I'm going to give you guys like 15 more seconds if you want to answer same questions, but after hours. How quickly are you responding to leads?
This was the after hours one still, right?
This is the after hours. Yep.
Okay.
All right. I am going to go ahead and end this poll. So our final answers are here.
Okay. Within 24 hours, you guys, just so you all like totally can feel normal, I would say before, I would say around 2020, this was, or in before, getting back to them same day or 24 hours was fine. Consumer expectations, that's something Podium lives, eat, and breathes, is understanding consumer expectation. As we have as we have had more companies starting that have created such high expectations on convenience and speed, it is now within 5 minutes. So if I haven't made that clear yet, I just want to say consumers 24/7 are expecting responses within 5 minutes during business hours, after business hours. It is no longer good enough during business hours to be within the hour. It's no longer good enough after business hours to get back to them in 8 hours. They don't care what time of day it is. And I actually think I have a slide where we're going to talk about like how much traffic's coming in after hours. So I'll save that. But the new expectation in 2026 is honestly, it was, I say in 2025 is 5 minutes. I bet if we run our survey again, it would be 2 minutes, you guys. It's getting out of control. So having the right tech to be able to meet those expectations is going to be critical because it is just not realistic for your front desk to be that efficient in getting back to every lead within that 2 minute expectation or 5 minute expectation. So thank you for working on your feet real quick there, Kara, for those. Here are the averages, you guys. This is as of last year. So 90 minutes is the average during business hours. And after hours is, like I said, 8 hours. And as we've done these secret shopper reports, these numbers really have not changed. This is what we're seeing really consistently. So if you're on point with these, great, it's totally normal. However, it's time to get faster. And the good news is revenue will come with that because you will increase your conversion rates. So this is what I wanted to drill down on. For those of you that are, I don't know how many of you are actually digging into your website traffic by hour, but the average amount of website traffic coming in after you're closed is 40%. That's a big number. That's a really big number to not have responses until 8 hours later, you guys. So I just wanted to double down and share that stat because it's a real problem that there is tech out there to solve for, which is the good news. And I always think this is interesting to share. So MIT did a study on the importance of that speed to lead and what happens if consumers do not hear back within that 5 minute mark. And it's an 80% drop off of engagement. That's 5 minutes, and you're having a drop off of 80% engagement because if you think about anything that you're doing, our attention spans are very short. We live in a world of a lot of noise, and to sit for 5 minutes and be focused on, I sent this business a text and you have my full attention for 5 minutes, it's not happening. They send it, and maybe you've got a minute or two, right? Before they're on to the next thing. Maybe they get distracted, they change their mind, whatever it is. This number is significant, and it's a real problem that you really need to be thinking about how you're going to solve for and meeting these expectations. There's a lot of numbers on this slide, but I'm going to stay high level on this. And you can run these with your own numbers and do your own math, but it's more just to kind of plant a seed for y'all to think about the financial impact by having slower response times, which lead to lower conversion rates. So these are just a sample for you. But let's just take a medical spa getting 100 new leads per month for easy math. And let's say the average patient spend is $500. Again, for your own practice, maybe these numbers are different. So kind of create your own equation. But if we take industry average response times of 90 minutes, let's say you get a lead to engage, you get them in for a consult, and you're converting about 25% of those. The revenue, if you think it's 100 leads with a 25% conversions, about 25 patients at $500 each, is about 12,500 a month, 150 a year. If you take the gold standard and you're replying within minutes, that 5 minute mark, you do the same kind of math, you're looking at 17,500 a month, that's 210,000 a year. So conclusion of what is the slow response time costing you? 60 grand a year in this scenario. Again, run your own math, but we know that slow responses does have an impact on conversion of the consult. That's your first goal. Like you just need to get them in for a consult. So I encourage you all to just run these numbers and see what kind of revenue you're leaving on the table. But I guarantee you, if you can get really good at responding within 2 minutes, you will convert more leads because they will book with you before they message somebody else or they change their mind or whatever it may be. But there is definitely money you're being left that's getting left on the table if you're not responding within those few minutes, which is new consumer expectation. Here's one of the problems. Your front desk is probably managing, and I referenced this earlier, but there's a lot of noise for them. They have different tech stacks that they're in. They have to check your email for your contact us form leads or checking your Instagram DMs to make sure they're getting back to anyone who's engaged with a post or maybe had a question about a service or treatment. The phone's ringing, there's emails coming in. It's a lot. And for them to get back to all the leads is nearly impossible if you don't have a system that can bring this all into one uniform inbox, which for those of you that don't know Podium, that is one of our big value adds is it's being able to take the text, the emails, the phone calls, the social media DMs, the social media ads, the Google ads, whatever it is, and it's bringing it all into one inbox for your front desk to be able to reply to right there in one place, which the streamlining of it alone is a huge time saver and allows them to set them up for success in getting back to those leads. But I talked about this earlier, you guys. You're going to recognize these brands. They changed everything. They changed the game. They changed consumer expectations overnight. And now we all want instant answers, we want convenience, and we want 24/7 availability. It doesn't matter if you're closed. In fact, when you're closed is probably when people have time to themselves to think about that luxury spend, to think about that treatment that's been on their minds for a while. It's not when they're at work or if they're a stay-at-home mom, they're with their kids all day. It's after hours. And so they very much are expecting those same response times after hours as well. Okay, so just to drill down on this, I talked about having a unified inbox, an SMS first strategy, and utilizing automations and AI. So let's dig into this. I don't need to beat a dead horse, but you guys get the point. If you do not have a system that's bringing everything into one place, you got to start shopping for one. SMS first strategy. I love when practices want to be a phone call first business because it's more personal. Pick up the phone and call, right? Amazing, but guess what? You're going to end up playing phone tag. So go ahead and try to make the phone call because it's not, I mean, it's definitely the best thing for connecting and like building a real relationship is connecting over the phone, but it's not going to be the most efficient and it's not going to be the communication channel that's going to work for your client or for the lead. So we at Podium always push SMS for strategy. We live in a text world. It's the preferred form of communication. So having a SMS solution that is matched with your business phone number that is the same because you do not want to be texting from a totally different number than the number that shows up on your Google My Business page that they got a phone call from the other day. You want people to be able to save you in their cell phone number. You're their local practice. It's one phone number that they hear from you, whether they're getting their appointment reminder, whether you're texting them a text marketing promotion, whether you're communicating it about an event that you have coming up, whether you're answering a question that they have on a BBL Moxie treatment, it's one phone number. And so we really encourage folks to have not only be able to text their clients, but to be able to have that from the same phone number that they're communicating on in every other way. All right, and then utilizing automations. You guys hear about this a lot. So there's definitely a lot of tech out there where you can kind of have, preloaded FAQs, the stuff that you get asked all the time, kind of just like a automated text that goes out that answers that's not very human-like. And that's fine. At least you're getting something in front of the person that's responding. At least you're responding quickly. But we're going to talk about something that's like a step up from that we're really passionate about here at Podium in just a minute. That's just a level up from just an automated FAQ. But if nothing else, you definitely at least want to have something like that. And then just being able to maintain those fast response times by having, even if it's at a bare minimum, a text that automatically that goes out that says, "Thank you so much for texting us. We'll text you back in the morning. We're currently closed, but excited to connect with you." Even that is better than silence for 8 hours. But let's talk about the gold standard of automations and AI. So we have been spending the last 2.5 years building the premier AI employee on the market in aesthetics. And it is, you guys, the day that OpenAI, I'm sure you all remember the day that you started hearing about ChatGPT, it changed our world forever, forever. Like the movement of AI right now is going to impact our lives way beyond even the creation of the internet, which is kind of mind-blowing to think about. But everything's going to start escalating rather quickly on the capabilities of AI. And so I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about specifically how to leverage an AI employee in the most strategic way. Because, like I said earlier, AI is not the answer for everything. This industry is special because of the human touch, but the human touch happens when they walk into your practice. And from the minute they walk in to the minute they leave, that is human all day. But there is a lot that you can leverage an AI employee for smartly. So let's talk about this. So 24/7 coverage. And I'm actually going to show you a real life like walkthrough of what this experience can be from a consumer that's engaging with a med spa that uses something like Podium that has an AI employee. But having 24/7 coverage, faster response times, so guaranteed 2 minutes every lead, 24/7. Frees up your front desk to focus on the patients in the practice. We talked about that. Once you have a human in the practice, the front desk should not be answering phone calls, interrupting those conversations. They should be giving the human in front of them their undivided attention. Decrease staffing costs. AI employees are a hell of a lot cheaper than hiring a human. And by no means are we here to say replace your humans with an AI employee. Humans definitely have a very important role in running the practice. But to be able to automate some of the other stuff is going to save you money and save your front desk time and allow them to focus on the most important things, which are those human connections. Um, and not just human connections, by the way. You guys know this, and Kara's either already talked about this or she will be, but that role is talking about the new skincare line, that is on the shelf or a new device you guys have coming up. Even if the providers already mention it, it's just another person to show some excitement about a new service or treatment that they have coming. Talk to them about the memberships that you have. If they are in membership, going through what they have remaining, getting them scheduled for stuff because we want them using up the benefits of the membership. There's a lot that they could be doing with their time. Consistent, accurate, and professional responses. I'm sure you all have experienced this. It is hard to find really good help. People that can be your brand, speak the way you want them to speak, be accurate always. And so, a nice thing about an AI employee is you train the AI employee and they never make the same mistake twice. That's really valuable. And now, I mean, when we first launched our first AI employee, it was a lot more basic than it is today. We've learned a lot and we've been able to improve, we call her Avery, to a place where it's wild. Like you can upload all of your own policy and procedures. If she says something that's a little off brand and you want her to be a little bit more casual or a little more high end or professional, or you don't want her to ask this, or you do in these situations, it's like ChatGPT. You give it some feedback real time. She'll never make that same mistake again. Moving forward, she will nail exactly what coaching you have given her. So it's really cool stuff in a really cost-effective way to make sure that all of your leads are handled with professionalism and are on brand for you. Here are some results from practices that use Podium's AI employee Avery specifically. So we see about 40% increase in total conversions, 71% improved response time, and 28% of all messages are being handled by AI. And y'all might be thinking like, how well accepted is the community, the consumers in engaging with an AI employee. And you guys, they do not care as long as it is giving them the information that they need. In a lot of cases, our practices choose not to even have them claim that they're an AI employee. And the amount of Google reviews that our practices get for their AI employee is actually quite hilarious. People will walk in and ask for that employee because they can change her name to whatever they want it to be. But consumers do not care if you have a good employee. If it is a bad, robotic, generic AI employee that is not answering the question or understanding what's being asked, super frustrating. That's why it's so important that you're shopping around for the best on the market. But if it's a good one, they will not be able to tell the difference between an AI employee and a human, which is pretty wild. Okay, I want to run you guys through a real life example. So imagine a world where a lead fills out a contact form on your website. Most of you have one of these. Maybe you have a chat on your site where they can ask a question, they submit a form there, whatever it looks like. Okay, so they come on, let's say it's after hours. They put in their name, cell phone number, what question they have. It gets assigned to Avery automatically within Podium. Let's say you are using Podium and you've got the AI employee who's working for you 24/7. Avery steps in within 2 minutes. By the way, she can be within 10 seconds if you want, but we always encourage people to do 2 minutes or 1 minute because you don't want it to be so instant that the person's like, oh, I'm not talking to a human. This is automated. If you don't care and you're going to disclose that she's an AI employee, it could be faster and then let them be impressed with how helpful she can be. But totally up to you to customize how fast you want her responding, but our best practice is 2 minutes. So Avery jumps in, introduces herself. Thank you for reaching out about microneedling. We received your message and I'd love to help. Do you have any questions about the treatment that I can answer for you? Very professional, very specific. The client replies, hey, yeah, I've been curious about microneedling for a while, but nervous about how painful it is. Also, wondering what the cost looks like, trying to figure out if it fits in my budget. Great questions. Most clients find microneedling to be very tolerable and compare it to light scratching. We use a strong numbing cream beforehand to keep you as comfortable as possible. I won't read through all this, but you can see that she's mentioning pricing. And by the way, if you don't like your employees to share pricing, you want to wait till the consult. You train your AI employee that you don't give out pricing and let her know how you'd like her to handle any questions about pricing. And
Can
then,
I chime in for 2 seconds too, Shannon?
yeah,
I just want to jump in and point out that even if you're not ready to jump to an AI solution today, even though we highly recommend having some type of thing, even just looking at this verbiage here, when you are two-way texting your patients, if someone in the office is communicating, this is the type of communication that you should be having with your patients. So while we've simplified it using AI, I want to point out that this like casual conversation, but is still educational, is something that you really, really should strive for. Whether it's Avery, your AI front desk, or whether it's Kara sitting in your office answering text messages via, like all of these practices, even that Shannon has gone through. AI makes it easier. We use AI all the time. I think it can be super, super efficient. But if you opt not to be ready for it yet, this is the type of communication, these strategies that Podium is using for AI should be deployed in your practice at your front desk.
I love that you mentioned that, Kara, because we hear from owners all the time saying our AI shows our front desk what good responses look like, and it trains them on how we want them to reply. So it's like a side benefit. It's so funny, but that's one reason they love it too. Okay, so the AI recommends the date and time, and she can do that because Podium, I don't even think I've talked about this, but we launched an EMR last week, which is a really exciting move for us so that our AI employee can be very specific, recommend dates and times, have access to the calendar, and works. Think about you guys, the back and forth that your front desk has to do on like, are morning or evenings better? Does this provider work? And like the back and forth and how slow that all is, AI can do all that. That isn't something that a human like manpower should waste their time doing. I mean, they can, but an AI employee can take that off their plate. So, long story short, they land on a good date and time, and the person who was interested in this lead is grateful they got a quick response, they got their questions answered, their concerns about the pain taken care of, and they got them booked for an appointment, all while you are off the clock spending time with the family, which is the way it should be. So inquiry booked, 30 minutes while you were closed. So let's just recap. We talk about speed wins, new expectation, 5 minutes. And if you want to be really competitive, we push 2 minutes, but 5 minutes should be your new like North Star. And if you can get it in under 2 minutes, amazing. Simplify the funnel. If you have leads going into a couple different systems or communication channels, you've got to look to bring that into one place. That will make your front desk lives so much easier. And then automate smartly, whether it's more AI FAQ, where it's not like a full-on AI employee that can be customized and learn. It's just kind of like commonly asked questions. Or if you're ready to hire an AI employee, we actually have deployed about 2,000 Averys out into the world, into med spas, which we're really proud of. We've been at it for about 2 years, and she's the fastest growing product we've actually ever built, which has been really fun to see her take off, and the demand is definitely there. Um, and then yeah, and then the AI employee. I said that last one. So that's kind of my recap for you guys. If you have any questions about, you just want to talk casually about an AI employee, concerns you have, how other med spas have used one. I always love geeking out and talking about AI employees, or even all things tech in this industry. There's my cell phone number. I'm a text girly, but feel free to call me. There's my email if you prefer email. And then if any of you are interested in seeing Podium's new AI operating system, or just our communication platform where you can consolidate all your communication and leads into a single place, we would absolutely love to talk to you. And you can just scan that QR code right there.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I know
You're
that,
welcome.
like at the end of the day, I would say I am all about simplifying things. And I've said this earlier. We spent so much time earlier talking about human touch and empathy and emotionally connecting, and then we switched right into like this amazing like AI, let someone else do it for you conversation. But there's context there. And as I was saying, and Shannon came up on it too, is that if you put responsibilities in the right buckets and you have your team doing all of the right things and you leverage other resources within the practice, you now have just given your employees time to do the things that require us to connect, like you said, humanly. And I love that so much. So we're going to do a little switcheroo here, and I am going to go back to sharing my screen, and Shannon is going to stop sharing hers. Again, thank you so much, Shannon, for joining us. Thank you so much for your partnership with APP. Shannon and I have also become friends through our connection in the industry, and you absolutely should reach out if you're interested in learning anything additionally about Podium, Avery, their new operating system, or like she said, she is the tech girl to answer all of your questions about how we do things in the office. So thank you so much, Shannon, for being with us. And hopefully, I don't know what your weather's like up there in Utah, but I know half the people are from like southeast and central practices. So we were talking weather earlier. So I'm doing a pulse check. What's your weather in Utah today?
You guys, we are usually a big snowy state right now, and we have no snow. So I know many of you are dealing with like
Oh,
scary amounts of snow, but be grateful for it because we need the moisture and we're not getting it. It's so weird.
oh, pray for snow. I'm speaking at ABAM in 2 weeks, and we have our lift tickets up in Park
Park
City. So
City.
hopefully, we're praying for snow there. All right.
Nice.
Thank you again, Shannon, for joining us. So, folks, we are going to take probably not a full 10 minutes. We have just under 90 minutes left. So we're kind of we're only 5 minutes behind on our 90-minute schedule. But I wanted to make sure that if anyone needed or wanted to take little bio breaks, check your email, grab some coffee or some water. We can network in the chat. If anybody has questions, now would be the time, if we haven't answered them, to raise your hand. We can answer any additional questions. We have a whole segment left, so we may get to some of your questions. But I know that it's also late for some of you folks over on the East Coast. So I'm going to give us about 3 minutes instead of a 10 full minute break. And I'm going to mute on my end, but I'm watching the chat. So I do want to make sure that we give people time to step away if we need to, because it's a long time to sit and talk. And we still have a lot of exciting things left. So please use your chat feature if you want to ask me any questions. Happy to unmute you. Otherwise, I am going to turn the music back on in the background and give us about 3 minutes. Shannon, are you still on with us? She may have dropped off. So someone had a question. Was the data about responding within 5 minutes based on new client acquisition only, or was it every message new and existing? So I was going to have Shannon join us or answer that if she was on with us. The answer is that is based on new data. Because typically, if they are already a part of the practice, they're already a customer, then they are more willing to take a little bit longer for response time. So great question though. So just to recap, was the data about responding within 5 minutes based on new client acquisition, or was it every message every time? So the answer is that data is based on new client inquiries. And then another one from Jessica. What would you say is the biggest supportive the clinic staff can give to the front desk for efficiency? Oh my gosh, I love this question so much. So I would say it's twofold. So in order for clinicians to really fully support our front desk teams, I would say the number one thing is education, training, and resources. So it's really hard for our front desk team to do all the things that we're asking them to do when we only give them half the information. As a consultant, when I'm out in practices, some of the biggest things that I see is the front desk has a laundry list of things that they need to do, but they don't have the right resources or they weren't trained properly. So if you are a clinician, I would say really identifying where they need education on what, again, they're doing, and whether it's to answer questions, if you will. And the secondary thing is, I have to be honest, is just understanding and patience. Setting expectations, understanding. I would encourage, and this goes for every med spa manager and owner, sit at the front desk for a whole day. Take yourself out of your position and sit at the front desk for a whole day. I think you get a totally different perspective, even as a clinician, if you did it for 3 hours, to see what happens on a busy day and really understand. But the flip side of that is I also think the front desk should shadow clinic for a full day. And so I think it's really important for everybody to understand the roles within the clinic and understanding patients and just making sure everyone has the tools, support, and resources they need in their position to do their jobs, I think would be a really big one. And then Lexi asked, what would you say is the most vital part of the introduction? Like what should we be focusing on the most? And that is actually part of our next section that we have coming up. So give us just a minute, Lexi, and we are going to get there. So just quick reminder, if you did step away, we are going to start here in just a minute, and you may not have even heard me say that if you did step away. But if you have any additional questions, please continue to put them in the chat. And then we are doing the giveaway. So everybody that is here on the end of the panel or the end of the discussion, I am going to have Jalyn, my marketing coordinator, who is on with us as well, write down all of your names. And those folks that are still on at the end are getting entered in to win a patient experience in service with me. That's virtual and or in person, depending on where your practice is. Like if it's in Hawaii, it's definitely in person. And launch on APP and a customer service training plus 4 hours of customer service training for your practice. So, all right. We're going to go ahead and I'm just going to turn my camera back on and we're just going to go ahead and power through. We have a little bit of time left and we want to make sure that we cover all of the things that we wanted to cover on our conversation today. So, all right. So scripts for your front desk. So I have a love-hate relationship with scripts. I wrote a lot of scripts for you all that you're going to get after the webinar conclusion on Wednesday, so that we just send them out to all the attendees at once. And so my love-hate relationship with scripts is very simple. I don't want you to sound scripted. I want it to sound natural, and I want it to sound authentic. And I want patients to feel like you are connecting with them, that you don't say something, the same exact thing to every single patient, and that it's not a transactional relationship. But at the same time, I think having intentional scripts, script-ish, gives us guidelines. It tells us the conversations that we need to be having with our patients, and it gives us a good way to guide conversations. So I'm going to talk through some sample ones right now, and then you are going to get a long list with a lot of different scenarios with some scripts. What I would say is you still have to make it authentic. You still have to make it part of you. You want your personality to shine. And whether it's scripts for copy and paste text messages or email responses or actual phone conversations, I think you should have them as learning points. And it really, really does, to Jessica's point, help instill confidence and knowledge if you have some of these scripts as samples. So I think scripting is important. So with inquiry calls, and by the way, I have a ton of scripts for inquiry calls. Remember, and this is so, so, so true, you do not get a second chance to make a first impression. You get a second chance to have a second chance and hopefully rectify a situation if you didn't make the best first impression, but you will never get a second chance to make a first impression. And so when patients are calling your practice, they're looking for confidence, they're looking for knowledge. If I ask you a question and the answer is, I don't know, I probably don't know if I want your injector to stick needles in my face, right? I don't know that I want to walk into your practice where the person whose responsibility is to answer the phone and answer my questions says, I don't know to a question. So that confidence, that knowledge, and this is where some scripting comes in potentially. And so I think that having a script can also be a signature. So, for example, I have a practice who's a private client of mine who's a plastic surgeon in Miami. And every week they update his stats. How many Botox injections has he done this week? How many are this year? How many breast dogs has he done? How many facelifts has he done? How many tummy tucks has he done this week? And when his team answers the phone, they say automatically for any person that's calling, first off, they say, good morning or good afternoon. Thank you for choosing, not thank you for calling, thank you for choosing Dr. Plastic Surgery. I can't wait to help you look and feel your best today. In this particular case, it says, how may I help you create your best look today? And when the caller says, oh, I'm wondering how much is a breast dog, the answer is always, you have called the right place. Dr. Smith is a breast augmentation expert. As a matter of fact, he's done 312,000 of those this year. They know those numbers off the top of their head. What they've done without answering any calls is number one, they've said, thank you for choosing. We've already said you've chosen us, and we've thanked them right off the bat. Thank you for choosing. And then they also took control of the conversation. And in this scenario, they said, how may I help you create your best look today? And in the other scenario with the plastic surgeon, they said, how can I help you, feel and look your best today? And so they're already starting the tone in controlling the conversation, but then they stop talking and they listen. And when they need to ask questions, it's clarifying questions. You'll never hear them cut somebody off who's mid-sentence or sound uninterested in the conversation. And the whole entire goal is to guide them towards booking. So it looks very different when someone says, well, how much is Botox? Well, Botox is $14 a unit. What can I do from there other than say, yes, okay, great, sign me up, or okay, thanks, bye, just checking, because I'm just taking a poll of all 3,612 med spas in my area to see how much they're charging for Botox. When you control the conversation, you control the patient's journey. And so you're asking clarifying questions, you're giving information, and you're guiding towards goal. You're guiding them towards the where we want them to get, which is on our schedule. We're talking them about, again, what our outcomes look like and those type of things. And we're giving them options. And in that conversation, we're also controlling the schedule. In this case, you can see she says, I have availability Thursday at 2 or Friday at 10. Which one works better for you? You can see how different that would look than if I said, great, when do you want to come in? Well, if someone's asking me, I want to come in Sunday afternoon, sometime between my morning coffee and my afternoon Pilates when I have extra time to just, me time. And let's be honest, that's not realistic for most practices. Maybe you're not even open on Sunday between my coffee and my Pilates. Then why did you ask me when I wanted to come in? Why didn't you give me options of when the schedule was available for me to come in? So even though you're really focused on customer service, you also have to be intentional in your conversation. So your front desk team is there to provide good customer service and be a brand ambassador, answer questions, but they're also there to help get patients on the schedule. And so you have to be able to make sure that we're guiding the conversation. This unto itself is an entire training. And there is definitely some strategies in that playbook that you all are getting afterwards of how to guide you towards this. But remember, this is not a transactional conversation. Your job is not to just answer how much the cost of Botox is, or how much a treatment is, or when the next available appointment is. Your goal is to get them on the schedule, eliminating options for the answer being no, or standing at pause that, like, I don't know where to go from here. So you have to really, really make sure that you are giving that best foot forward and that good customer service, and then immediately taking control of the conversation. And again, actively listening, clarifying questions, helping guide patients to their goals. Remember, you are not standing out in front of your med spa wellness center, dermatology practice, or plastic surgery practice with a sandwich board sign that says, please come get Botox, with a sandwich board sign that says 50% off breast augmentation today. You didn't do either of those things, or at least I hope you didn't do any of those things. These patients actually actively went to social media. They went on to the internet. They went on to your website. They talked to their friends. They picked up the phone and they called you. Right? So if you're just transactionally answering their questions and letting them go, you've lost your entire opportunity. And so you really have to master the ability of capturing patients on that first phone call, because again, you're not going to get a second chance to make that first impression. So you really, really have to make sure from inquiry call that you're controlling that conversation. You're getting those patients on the books and you're guiding that conversation. And you can do that without being pushy, without being salesy, or any of those things. It's about guiding. And again, you're going to get some great resources on some other examples of how to do that. And also, the second question I always get is, how do I have my front desk handle price questions? So I should have done a poll for this one, but I didn't. So I'll take either your DM answers, or if you don't want to answer, that's okay as well. But how many of you allow your front desk to answer questions about price? How many of you do not? This is an important question to the conversation, because I think that there's a lot going on in this conversation. And again, that is, do we allow our front desk to answer questions about price, or do we not? I'd love to hear from you how many do. And I'll kind of give you my answers on why I think you should. Because number one, price transparency is very important. I know that a lot of consultants, a lot of sales conversations out there say, oh, no, you need to get them in the office so you can talk about pricing. When was the last time you went car shopping, house shopping, shoe shopping, and said, oh, no, don't tell me the price until I'm ready to buy them? Part of your research process in your window shopping, when you fully intend to buy something, is identifying the cost of something. And so when you have patients calling around and asking pricing questions, price is only part of their objective. Because let's be honest, they can look up the price on the internet. Every single person on the planet that is getting a neurotoxin or a dermal filler or a treatment can look up on the internet the average price of these things. So your consumers are educated. They know that these things cost money, right? And so for us to simply say, oh, no, we're going to talk to you about it at consultation. Just go ahead and come on in. Spend your time, come and talk to me, because we hope that we can get them on the hook once they get in. I do not advocate that is the best policy. Now, some question can be had about especially plastic surgery procedures. and whether we should be talking about ranges or giving it starts at and goes up from there. There's another discussion to be had around, well, the front desk doesn't know what I'm going to do. You're right. They don't know how many units that you're going to place. They don't know which dermal filler that you're going to pick. But when we give the confidence and we educate them and they know how to ask the right questions, then they should be able to give ranges or starts at, but seal the deal with, in order to get accurate pricing, we would need you to come in for a complimentary consultation or a consultation in general, whatever that is, so that we can customize a treatment plan specifically for you. But they need to know what that information is. They need to know how to combat that. The number one reason why front desk staff do not like to talk about pricing is because they're thinking from their own pocket. And they're thinking, well, I don't want to tell them how much that is. Then they're going to say it's too expensive and hang up. But that's not accurate. As a matter of fact, people are more suspicious or concerned if you completely avoid giving them price. That's right. We see that in the chat, Ainsley. That is 100% correct. It also doesn't instill confidence. And so you need to be able to talk about it and still explain that your treatments are going to be customized. That's correct, Uriel. The reason why we give them the tools, support, and resources and that confidence to answer those questions is because we want to capture those patients. We want to make sure that they do walk in the door. You also can add value and talk about, if you already know your pricing is higher than competitor down the street, you should be immediately following up with why we're the best, why we're the trusted. We only use FDA approved products. Our doctor has done X number of procedures. We have advanced training in all of these things. And then you can then pivot to other parts of the conversation, but you absolutely should be talking about pricing. Gone are the days that consumers do not know what the price of these treatments are. The reality is they do. They know the cost of these treatments. They know the average cost. There is, again, data points down there that says the average woman does 1 to 3 years of research before she actually pulls the trigger and has an aesthetic treatment done. So you cannot tell me that in that 1 to 3 years of research, they haven't figured out what the freaking cost of Botox is. They have, or GLP-1s, or a specific laser that you're trying to market. They know the cost of these procedures, your confidence, your customer service, all of these things that gets them in the hook. They're just trying to decide where they want to buy it. So when I go into practices all the time and they're like, oh, well, they're just price shoppers. Everybody's a price shopper. The last time I went and looked at shoes, I found the shoes I wanted at Nordstrom and I found the shoes I wanted at the brand. And guess which one? They're the same shoe. I'm going to buy it from the one that has the best price. That's actual reality. But the reality is shoes are very different than medical procedures. And so now I'm comparing price and my confidence and comfortability of wanting to go to this procedure or this provider or this medical spa or this plastic surgeon. So we have to remember everyone's a price shopper. Your job is to convince them to buy from you. Your job is to make them feel comfortable that they want to not only walk in your door, but they want to buy from you. We also know that, especially with aesthetic and elective procedures, that patients are willing to pay a higher price when they understand the value. And cost is an objection in the absence of value. Let me say that again. Consumers are willing to pay a higher price when they see and understand the value. Price is their objection when they don't see the value. Your job is to show them the value in what you do and how you do it. So that cost is not the barrier. And then there's also a lot of different ways we can help overcome that, especially as providers. And we find this with clinicians that are not the owners or managers, and also with front desk, is that we think, gosh, I wouldn't pay that much money to have that treatment done. If I didn't work here and wasn't getting it at whatever, I might not go somewhere to have it done. But the reality is they called you, they did the research, they picked up the phone, they want to have that procedure. So you're actually doing them a disservice when you're not answering their questions. You're not guiding them to scheduling. You're not giving them patient financing options. You're not helping them achieve their goals. They picked up the phone and called you. So now if you're not answering those questions and you're not giving them that information, you're actually doing them a disservice. So you can throw all of that, like, well, I didn't want to lose the patient based on price out the window because we've just done the exact opposite of what we've wanted to do. So the reality is we have to speak confidently about our products, treatments, and procedures. And again, especially from the front desk, I will never expect a front desk person to know exactly how many units or exactly how much a procedure is, or in the example of plastic surgery, what happens from cut to suture. But we should definitely know how to explain and validate credentials and understand this treatment and those type of things. So this is why it's really important that we give them the tools, support, and resources and that confidence and education. Jessica said in the chat, it also gives them what their plan should be, and it gives the client the confidence in our services. That's 100% true. They have to be confident, and you have to be able to present those plans wholly, either from the front desk or the provider perspective, to help them reach their goals. Otherwise, again, we're not giving optimal outcomes, and we're doing disservice. So it is really important for retention and making sure that we're doing right by our patients at all times, that we are able to answer that question. And when we're not able to answer that question, we should give them options. So like, for example, I always tell my team, never say the words, I don't know. Like, those are not words that should come out of your mouth. Those are great questions. And I can find someone to make sure that I get the most appropriate answer for you. That is a great question. And I want to make sure before I answer it that I have the correct answer for you. And just being able to say those type of things instead of I don't know really sets the tone for the conversation. Appointment booking, we should always be letting patients know what happens. So when we have booked their appointment, letting them know when the date and time, repeat that, make sure they understand that. And let them know what's going to happen next. They're going to receive a confirmation email, a text. They're going to get email instructions to the practice or what to happen, pre-treatment instructions, those type of things. There should always be a what happens next conversation at your front desk. Everything should lead to, okay, so your next appointment is here. The next treatment plan is this. This is what's going to happen next. When patients feel educated, again, we continue to instill that confidence in what we're trying to do, and they get excited. It's already proven that more even than deposits and credit cards on file, engagement is what decreases no-shows. So if you have a high no-show rate in your practice, if you increase your engagement rather than just charge a deposit or put a credit card on file, you increase your engagement. That's that discussion between scheduling and their appointment that we talked about, and you increase your engagement. That is what diminishes or reduces your no-shows. Also, when patients are highly engaged between appointment and coming in, we've seen their ticket value go up. We know that they are more willing because they're now comfortable. They feel educated. They feel connected to the practice. So you're going to get lots and lots of scripts. But I think it's scripted authenticity, right? So scripts give us structure and they give us confidence. And unless you have a photographic memory, you don't need to memorize them verbatim. You should make them yours, and it should not feel transactional. So you just want to make sure that you have scripts as examples. You have scripts to help you with that confidence, and every practice should have scripts for every scenario and every situation in your practice as it comes to the front desk. This also helps with your training. So one of the things that we emphasize on is self-empowerment, empowering our team members to always have the resources at their fingertips. So if you have scripts mapped out, it helps you in your training process. When you're onboarding a new front desk person, it is hard to come up with remembering every scenario that you need to teach them. But if you have scripts, you've already addressed that, and they have a reference point if something comes up that you haven't talked about, because chances are you're going to have so many scenarios that you haven't talked about. So authentically, creating scripts for your training process, for your resource guide, those type of things are very good things to have. Now, earlier, Lexi, you asked a question, and I want to make sure that we answer it 100% correctly. So I'm going back to the chat. You said, what would you say is the most vital part of the introduction, like the biggest thing to focus on? Lexi, can I have you raise your hand and I'm going to unmute you? I want you to explain that for me so I can make sure that we address that properly, if you don't mind. All right. So I'm going to unmute you so that you can answer that question. So explain to me exactly what you mean when you ask that question.
So what I mean, in my clinic specifically, what I'm focused on is checkout, but sometimes I have to cover check-in whenever we're on like lunch breaks and stuff. So what is one thing that you've noticed that is like the star thing you want us to focus on? Like, is it the personality? Is it the verbiage? Is it like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's kind of a loaded question. So I think that every person's different. And so I think that efficiency and process, like if you are covering different places or multitasking, if you will, I would say focus on their like the immediate need rather than a trait, if that makes sense. And I wanted to also make sure that I covered, and I'm not sure I have this in here, that going along with that, the biggest question that comes in when people are multitasking is like if I have a person on the phone and I have a person in front of me, oftentimes we're trained that the person in front of us is the most important person and that's who we should be talking to. But the reality is that's not always the case. As a matter of fact, I find most of the time it's just the opposite of the case because that person in front of you is already there. They're already there. They're invested. They made their appointment. They showed up. Maybe they've already had treatment and they're checking out. But that person on the phone, they don't know what's going on. They might be a new patient. And if we neglect that person to serve the person in front of us, this goes back to kind of multitasking, is that we have the potential to lose someone who hasn't worked in the office or hasn't come in yet to handle something that has come in. The other thing is that the person in front of you can see that the phone's ringing. They can see that there's a lot of things going on. And again, the person that's calling can't. So that also comes to like making that person feel rushed or answering the phone and saying, would you mind if I put you on a hold even before you find out why they're calling you? I hear that all the time. We secret shop practices a lot and we hear a lot of practices call and say, oh, ABC Med Spod, can you please hold? And then they go to presumably another call, another person, what have you. Remember, the person you just put on hold doesn't know you have someone standing in front of you, but the person standing in front of you knows that you have someone on hold on the phone. And so learning how to balance who you should address first as far as patients and what trait is most important and those type of things are really like you have to figure that out in the moment and you have to be able to multitask but also address all things. So I would say in my practice, I would want you to address the person on the phone by letting the person know that you're in front of you, that if you don't mind, I'm just going to let me handle this phone call real quick, or let me just answer this real quickly and I'll be right with you. Listen to what that person needs. Listen to why they're calling because it might be a simple answer, or you may have the opportunity to say, you know what, that is a really great question. If you don't mind, I'm just wrapping up checking out a patient. Can I put you on a brief hold? And I'll either be right back with you or maybe find a team member that can take that call. So it's all about multitasking and identifying by personality of your patients and kind of situations of when to pivot, what you need to address first. And I think that comes with just really understanding, again, your patients, your internal operating processes, and the things that you need to do to be that utility player at the front desk. And kind of to Shannon's point for my business owners and managers is think about what's most important in your practice, what you want your front desk teams focused on, and then find ways to either alleviate, move, or lighten the tasks, systematize the tasks that prevent them from being excellent at upselling, at talking about memberships, about talking about products, credentialing your providers, scheduling the next appointment, those type of things. Because I think that is the most important thing in the practice is making sure that everyone has the confidence and the understanding of kind of what happens next. And so this kind of goes in line with that. And something that we've talked multiple times throughout the conversation is you have to give your teams the empowerment, the education to be able to answer and handle frequently asked questions with confidence. So oftentimes, especially our front desk, we have a hole to fill. We have someone who's given notice, gone on maternity leave, didn't show up for 4 days because she just won the Powerball and moved to Tahiti. Who knows what reason why you have an immediate need at your front desk, but there's one. And what we do is we fill that hole with a hot body. We give them the training that we can in the moment. There's the phone. Here's your password. Now go. And that really doesn't set them up for success. And so making sure that your team is set up for success is important. And understanding that front desk team members need to know how to answer questions like, the differences between neurotoxin and dermal filler. They need to know, if you have a brand of radiofrequency microneedling, but somebody calls and says, do you have ABC laser? You can say, you know what, we do not have ABC laser. As a matter of fact, we have ABC DQ laser, but let me tell you why we picked that device, and why our providers prefer it, or why we feel our patients would get the best outcome, or why our patients recommend it, or why our providers recommend it. You have to be able to know the details. So it is really important that we do a lot of education when we bring our team members on. They need to know the differences between treatments. When a patient says, oh, I want dermal filler, are we asking about areas? Are we asking about other things so that we can at least identify if we're talking about the right product or treatment, so that during the consult, we can tell them during the consultation, your provider is going to give you recommendations, a specific treatment plan, a customized treatment plan. But it sounds like what you're looking for is, a treatment to address laxity or volume. Well, now we might be talking about dermal fillers. We might be talking about collagen stimulators like biostimulators. We might be talking about, who knows, PDO threads, devices. Like, you really need to give them the understanding of how to ask the right questions. And if they're not asking those right questions, we're going to end up with scheduling errors, confused patients that have different pricing expectations. I would also suggest when you're onboarding new front desk, or if you've had someone that's been there for a very long time and they haven't done any retraining, to have them spend a day shadowing your consultations, shadowing your treatments, hearing how you as providers talk to patients directly about products, treatments, and services. Those are things that are, again, going to set them up for success. We talked earlier about price transparency. I think it is really important that they're armed with tools that they can talk about pricing. But when we don't know pricing, giving them scripting to answer confidently, like, I completely understand that you would want to know the pricing up front. Our pricing is based on the amount of product, the type of product, what treatment plan is best for you. And you're going to go over that with your provider in your consultation so that we can make sure that we give you accurate pricing. Even if you do talk about pricing, you should still qualify that the treatment plan is based on the provider, that you're credentialing the provider. You're letting them know that the provider is the expert. They're going to guide you towards the best treatment, the best product, the best quantity to help you achieve the results and the goal that you're looking for. And that's when you'll get exact pricing. And so I think it's really important to make sure that you have those conversations and not have it be a transactional conversation, like you're just letting them know how much a Serinda filler is, how much a unit of Botox is, how much that halo treatment is, because you need to make sure that you're talking about ranges. We also know that many treatments require a series of treatments. So if you're answering transactionally, you might be just talking about one treatment, instead of just throwing out an entire treatment package, which could be a lot more costly. So giving them the confidence to really be able to handle frequently asked questions. And the power of credentialing, we've talked about that multiple times. Your front desk team should be your biggest fans. They should know your credentials. They should know your experience. They should be able to find ways to weave that into the conversation to instill confidence with the patients that are coming in the front doors. That is something that is so important, and we overlook it so often, both in the training process, but also in the conversation process from the front desk. Your power is being the cheerleader to the providers when that patient is excited to now come in and meet the provider and learn about the services. It doesn't matter, again, whether you're plastics, derm, wellness, med spa. You are in a service industry where people want to get excited and they want to feel confident and safe with the provider that they're choosing. And so that starts at that front desk with that credentialing process. So knowing how to credential your providers is extremely important. That is the key of really, really exuding confidence and knowledge to your patients. So if you have to create like a quick reference sheet, or again, protocols, scripts, have knowledge huddles. I love knowledge huddles, by the way. I recommend daily or weekly huddles for all teams. And I think there should be pop quizzes. I think that we should have service goals. We should be having conversations around different treatments that we have on a continuous basis, just to keep people up to date on treatments, products, protocols, credentials. I think those are all things that are really important to, again, continue to instill confidence in the patients walking in the door, but also empowering your front desk team to be your biggest cheerleaders. But you have to have systems in place. You have to systematize everything. The only way that something is scalable and sustainable is if you have a system, a process, an SOP, a checklist. You have all the things for all the things, because otherwise, when we are consistently like in this rat race of trying to create something, hope that it doesn't get missed, when it's systematized and it's replicable, it's just copy and paste every single time that question comes up, every single time that scenario comes up. And consistency builds trust with our existing patients, consistency in their experience, consistency in their results, consistency in how the phone is answered. When it is consistent, we as human beings recognize that there is a process, they have a system. This makes me feel safe. And so again, when we know what to expect and the expectation is met, we are now confident in why we chose you as a provider. So you really, really have to have systems in your workflow design. And I talked about this earlier, mapping out your entire patient process, everything that happens from lead through follow-up, and make sure that you identify where are the cracks. What are we missing? Where can we improve the process? What happens next? Does everybody know if we are a relay team and we're passing the baton and every single person in the practice touches that patient at some point in time? What's my role in that? Who am I handing it off to? Do they have a system? Are we all working together? Nothing gets missed. So having checklists and templates and processes and procedures and scripts, these are all things that like I definitely encourage practices that, you know, you're looking to scale, whether you're looking to just grow your revenue and build your team, whether you're looking to have a second location, whether you're looking to scale to sell to private equity, or whether you just simply want to grow organically and just see what happens, you have to have systems in place. Again, replicable, easy systems allow us to scale. It also sets the expectation for our team members when they know what to expect, when they know how to do it, when they know what the outcome is supposed to look out like, it's much easier to create. And we live in a day and age where there are thousands of tools at our fingertips. And it's really important to embrace those tools. Like, why would I use an archaic spreadsheet if there's an entire computer program designed to do exactly what I'm trying to do? Right? Why would we do that? So talk about efficiency and optimizing your team and optimizing your time. Look at that at your front desk. How can you optimize them? How can you be more efficient? How can you measure what you're doing, right? Because if it doesn't get measured, it's really, really hard to identify the gaps. where to make changes, those type of things. And communication is the key to that. Having regular communication in practices is a huge indicator of practice success and scalability as well as culture. When you meet weekly in weekly huddles or daily huddles, you meet monthly as an entire staff. Maybe there's a quarterly financial check-in or a monthly goal check-in that allows us to review our processes, share our wins, and identify those inconsistencies. Many years ago, as a practice administrator, I ran a very large plastic surgery dermatology practice. I had 6 surgeons, 3 derms, a variety of PAs, NPs, nurse injectors, estheticians, and we had a staff of almost 100. I had an OR to run, I had a skincare center to run, and it was really hard to keep everyone on the same page at all times. But I had a very strict process of communication and training with my team that started with morning flybys. By the way, I always walked in the front door, not the back door, because I wanted to see what the patient saw, not sneak in the back door. And I stopped and touched base with every single staff member before I sat down at my desk. I had weekly huddles with my management team. I had monthly all team huddles. I empowered my managers to have daily huddles with their staff. And these are all ways that this communication creates systematic processes. And even though we're talking about front desk, and this is really like all practice operations, this is huge for your front desk because the front desk team is the number one that we miss. We have clinical conversations, right? Our clinicians have meetings to talk about clinical things, right? Like patient outcomes or what have you. We have marketing meetings, we have financial meetings, but who is meeting with your front desk on a consistent basis to help them understand their goals, go over processes, continue education, and making sure that we're addressing inconsistency? That is the one department that we have a tendency to kind of let do its own thing. And we know when something's up, when something's not working, not when something's working really, really well. So thinking about how you can systematize all things in your practice. And again, that doesn't mean expensive tech all the time. That doesn't mean a new vendor all the time. That means strategically making operating business decisions based on roles in the practice. And that's how you set yourself up for success there. And really, truly, confidence comes. Our confidence equals conversion. So I know we've talked about this a couple times in the chat, is that when they're confident, when they're empowered, when they're knowledgeable, not only at the front desk, but like your patient care advocates, patient care coordinators, patient concierge, whatever you call them, as well as even your providers in the consultation room, confidence equals conversion. So making sure that our teams are really confident about talking about everything. And so it's really important to build product knowledge, have education ongoing for your providers and your front desk staff. Oftentimes we do it with the providers only. And as I said before, we leave our front desk teams out, but they're the most important ones that need this information because they're answering those phone calls up front. They're answering those conversations, those leads that we need to get those patients in the door. I create something for all of my practices that I consult with called a treatment scavenger hunt. I have a whole protocol where we actually have them do scavenger hunts, identifying products, treatment, services. What is the investment? What is the appointment time? What are the pre and post care instructions? What pairs well with it? If you put your email in the chat, we will send you over because that's one of the things that's not part of the resource guide. I just now thought of it. Actually, Jillian, you can hear me. Make sure that we add the scavenger hunt to our resource guide. So we'll just automatically send that out to you. You have to put your email in the chat. But it's a fun way to not only onboard our new employees, but even our existing employees. And what that scavenger hunt looks like is they have to go to our website or maybe our brochures, list all the products, and then identify on their own a series of questions based on whether it is a product, treatment, service, or surgery. And again, that is the investment, which is the cost, the appointment time, pre and post treatment instructions, all the things they should know. So the scavenger hunt tasks them to go find this information, put it into a spreadsheet, You can do it digitally, electronically, but then share out or seek out the information that they couldn't find on their own. And when they're doing it, like maybe it's about a dermal filler, maybe you just decided to bring on Daxi, you haven't had that, or the RHA line, and that's is different than Revance, or it's a new laser. Have them spend time on the manufacturer's website. ASPS.org is also a great resource. It's the American Society of Plastic Surgeon. They have non-surgical resources on there as well. But there are different places. If you're not a member of AmSpa and you are a medical spa, that is a great resource. And it's a low-cost investment to give your teams access to information, because again, knowledge is power. And if they can glean all of this knowledge, they should be able to answer the benefits, the costs, the downtime, and they become confident at the front desk in answering all of these questions. Host monthly lunch and learns where your own providers educate the rest of your team how you speak to treatments in consultation, the most common questions you get as providers. These are all really important things. So build that product knowledge and then make it live somewhere. Create cue cards or spreadsheets or what have you. And we've talked about this a couple times. Also, understanding the credentials of your providers. You see here it says Dr. Smith is a board certified, doesn't say what, could be a derm, could be plastic surgeon, but over 15 years of experience and has done over 10,000 successful injectable treatments. While those numbers are impressive, break it down into what makes your provider special. Again, credentials are important to patients. Extra training. I do like the how many times they've done this procedure when it's a good amount. If it's very low, maybe don't use that because they're still learning, or they've had advanced training. But again, it's installing confidence and allowing your patients to know that they made the right choice by calling. They don't have to be put on hold. You don't wait until they come in for consultation to get these answers or to get this confidence. So it's really important to make sure that, again, your front desk is set up with that confident information so they're able to share it at the front desk. I'm going to take a quick drink break. I may not be talking tomorrow, but I may recover. We'll see. I talk a lot. I'm used to it. All right. So another powerful tool at your front desk is, again, knowledge to help you personalize the patient's experience. So one of the most powerful revenue drivers is simply remembering what patients had before and what comes next. And this is as simple as knowing your schedule. So taking the time, maybe not the morning of, but before, and looking at past purchases, looking at future appointments, making notes. And again, you can note those preferences. Did someone just have a birthday? Did someone just have a child's wedding? Is someone going on vacation? But really just suggestive selling at the front desk starts with information. So one of the things that we like to have our teams do is just pop in and go reference past treatments. I see that you had a hydrofacial 3 months ago. Are you loving your results? We recommend you get those quarterly, if not monthly, to maintain that glow. That phrase is just a simple suggestive selling, taking a look back at what they've had done before. So if somebody's coming in for a dermal filler appointment today or a biostimulator, maybe it's taking a look and seeing when they had talks, right? Like, oh, you're on the schedule for a dermal filler, but I see that you had, talks, 6 months ago. Do you want to add that to your appointment today? I see that you are coming in for a weight loss injection today. Have you talked to your provider about your goals, about skin tightening treatments? If you see that they've been on a GLP-1 for 6 months, do we know where their goals are? Should we be starting to talk about body contouring and skin tightening? Are we talking about the supplements or other things that we have in our clinic? Or the med spa to address some of the symptoms, the side effects, or to enhance their treatments. So really understanding how their past appointments help us dive into their future recommendations is also really important, as well as Pre-book future appointments. You should know what comes next. You should be saying things like Dr. Jones has recommended follow-up in 3 months. Let's go ahead and get that on your calendar now. My goal for my consulting clients is 75% of patients leave with their next appointment. That means they're walking out the door with their next appointment on the schedule. Now, depending on what you're seeing them for, that might be very normal, but I'm willing to bet that's not always the case. So we want to make sure that we get them on the schedule. And I always liken this and say things like, you don't leave the dentist without your next appointment on the schedule, do you? I've never left the dentist without my next appointment on the schedule. And so it is really important that you have different ways to handle that conversation. Ainsley, that's a great question. The suggestion is that the provider recommends it. You use verbiage like, in order for you to get the best outcome, stay on track with your treatment plan. Anything that is recommended in a series of treatments, I recommend that you get the entire series on the schedule from get-go, letting them know that you can always make adjustments. They're going to get reminders, but always pulling back to the science and the outcome and their investment. You've paid for this treatment. Let's make sure that we keep on track. If they haven't booked a series or their future appointments, then the conversation needs to start in the treatment room, and it's a tag team. So don't leave it up, all of you providers. Don't leave it up to your front desk to just expect them to schedule the next appointment. You should be having that conversation in the treatment room. It comes from you. I want to see you back in. I want you to make sure your next appointment is X. Okay, the next treatment, or the next step in our treatment plan is this. Guiding that conversation, walking your patient to the front desk. Kara, I want to see Mrs. Smith back in 3 weeks for her ABC appointment. You're communicating that. If you have written treatment plans, all the better. I highly recommend written treatment plans because you're giving them goals, you're giving them a plan. It starts in the treatment room and then it extends as a tag team to the front desk. So obviously it's very hard that you don't want to be extremely pushy, but you still want to be able to say that you recommend something. We want to keep you on track, all of those things. And by the way, in our scripts, our post-treatment, you do have a lot of recommendations for some verbiage as well. Also at the front desk, you are the upsell queens and kings. You are do you want to add fries with that? You guys remember, maybe some of you don't remember, that McDonald's, when McDonald's first launched, they only sold hamburgers. They only sold a hamburger and a cheeseburger. They did not come with French fries. They did not have combo meals for a very long time because their marketing ploy was, do you want fries with that? That was their upsell, right? So everybody wanted to add fries to that because they consistently asked. It's at the checkout. You're asking that. So I say take it a step further. And again, if you're looking back at past treatments, you understand what they have had, what they haven't had. You should know what treatments pair well together, whether that is a dermaplane to a facial service, an IV while they're getting a dermal filler, a B12 shot added to a GLP-1 or something else. There's always an add-on to something they're coming in for today. So making sure that you know what those are and you're having those conversations at the front desk. As a matter of fact, you should be having those conversations when they schedule the appointment. You should be saying, I see you've done X before, or some of our patients like to add this to this because they get a great result. So really understanding what those companion products and treatments are is also really, really important to that conversation at the front desk. Remember that there is an impact, a financial impact and a retention impact for patients that pre-book their next appointment. So practices that pre-book their following appointment see a 35% higher patient retention. And if you've ever dug into stats on retention, 80% of your revenue comes from your lifetime patients. Those are patients that have been in your practice 3 times or more. And once they've come in 2 to 3 times, they also consider themselves a lifetime patient. And those are the patients that spend the most money, have the highest referrals, and also the people that they refer have higher ticket rates as well, because it's about that connection and trust that they already have with your practice. So patient retention is huge, and all of these things guide you towards solidifying and growing your patient retention rates. So we ended almost a full 30 minutes early. So either I didn't talk enough, somebody raised their hand if they want to hear me continue talking more. And I'm so happy to do it. Or we just really were efficient with our time today. I'd like to open it up here to Q&A, any questions you guys have. I would encourage you that your next huddle, that you would create a Monday morning action item if you're not already having one, and host a 15-minute huddle to share what you've learned in this webinar, the masterclass, what is some of your key takeaways, and what you would like to implement in your practice this week. Also, you're not downloading your resources. Initially, we were going to have you guys download them at the end of this call. But what we've decided to do is send them out all together after Wednesday's call. So you will be getting those via email. You will also be getting the edited recorded version of this call. And also we'll be announcing our winner on the end of the call on Wednesday. So Jolene, if you can do me a favor, it looks like we have about 27 people left in chat. So we need to make sure that, or left on the webinar, we need to make sure that we get all of their names down, because somebody's going to win that patient experience training. I would also encourage you to visit our website as well as Podium's to learn more about APP as well as Podium, if that's something that you're interested in. And I would open it up here to anyone that has any questions, any feedback. Is there anything that you would have liked to learn today that we didn't get to? I could potentially get you some resources on. Make sure that we incorporate potentially into our conversation on Wednesday. All attendees will be getting links for both webinars as well, because I don't script anything. So we hope that I say the exact same things on Wednesday that I said today. For the most part, we will, but there might be things that got brought up in different ways. So you might hear a different version if you ever want to replay either one of those. So you'll get both of them. So questions, I love questions. Any tips for conflict resolution at the front desk? Oh, I love this. And maybe this is something that we should add into our Wednesday conversation. So what I would say is there is a fine line between the customer is always right and how a customer behaves in the med spa. I would say my number one tip is get that patient away from the front desk. And just because sometimes a change of scenery helps also diffuse things. Sometimes people want to be angry. They want to make a stink. They want to, if they're upset, justified or not. And sometimes just simply moving them away from the front desk helps, number one, soften or diffuse the conversation. And number two, I would say, while the customer is not always right, you owe them the responsibility of listening to their point of view first. Everybody wants to feel heard. Everybody wants to get out what they have to say, again, justified or not. So sometimes just simply removing them and moving them into a different position, and then secondarily listening authentically, trying to understand, but still standing your ground, not allowing your employees to be disrespected, but just really understanding the situation is important. And also, never make your front desk person handle it. That's not their job, nor should it be their burden. And so, unless your front desk is also your manager, I would say diffuse the situation by moving it, listening to your patient, and getting somebody else involved in the conversation, because that's what they're there for. And there's a lot of great articles out there on customer service diffusion. In my resource guide, there is actually a customer service book. And I can actually look it up while I'm looking on here as well. But there's a customer service book that actually talks about diffusion. And I think it's one of the recommendations in the resource. Let me find it for you. I'll put it in the chat here in a second. Jillian, can you do me a favor on our resource guide? There's 2 customer service books that are part of the resource recommendations. Can you put those in the chat? Because I can't find the handout right now. If you can just go find that from either the emails that I sent or you should be able to find that in there. Let me know if you don't find it. And then ideas for rewarding your front desk person for improvements. This is a loaded subject. So I believe highly in incentivizing your entire team. Incentivization isn't always monetary, although you have to understand the drivers and what motivates certain people to understand how to incentivize them. But I'm not sure I believe hugely in quote unquote rewarding them for improvements. If they have to improve to do their job, then if improving means they get to baseline, then I'm not sure that I believe in a reward there. If you're talking about going above and beyond, that's more on the incentivizing side. And we can talk about that probably either offline because that gets into a whole different conversation. So feel free to scan that QR code and connect with me and we can talk about that. If you're talking about recognizing, not rewarding, that is totally different. So in your question, if your answer is recognizing improvement, I think that the number one affirmation people want is recognition. And I think sometimes that is verbal. Okay, so thank you for clarifying. Just wanted to give them recognition for new improvements. So if they're awesome already, my question would be, do they have an incentive plan? And if there is an incentive plan based on KPIs and performance things, then your recognition is them getting their goal and also announcing when we reach KPIs, goals, those type of things. Jillian, can you put that in the chat, please? Um, and then on, yes, those are just in the chat's fine. Again, recognition versus rewarding is different. So I'm a huge about recognizing. I think that we have to verbalize and recognize wins. It is very important. And so whether that's in your team meetings, whether that's in announcements, whether that's in like if you guys have some internal board or communication platform, you absolutely should recognize, and rewarding is dependent on whether they are incentivized already or not. Hopefully that answers your question. How to handle difficult phone conversations. Again, sometimes it's simply a matter of listening and understanding. And if you have a front desk person that isn't good at diffusing the information, right, and saying something like, I hear you. It sounds like you're upset by X. Let me make sure I understand why you're upset, what you need, and either having a handoff or a resolution just depends on kind of what the concern is or why they're upset in the first place. So understanding, asking clarifying questions, and sometimes again it's the same thing, is sometimes you just need to have another person to listen to. So maybe that is a pass off to a manager or somebody else, but I think understanding why they're upset is the most important thing. So you have to listen to them and try and redirect the conversation. Conflict resolution is really hard based on the personality you have at the front desk. Some people are very like outward personality. They understand conflict resolution. Some people are a little bit more meek and mild, and maybe they don't understand conflict resolution and it's a little bit more challenging for them. So I think the direction would be also dependent on who you have at the front desk and what their level of autonomy and authority is. Going back to that Ritz-Carlton, their job and why they were empowered with a monetary value to solve problems was because they wanted people to take ownership of and come up with their own solutions. So I think another thing to do is really have like conflict management conversations with your team, and identifying their personalities and drivers, I think would be important. And then Lexi asked, are there any books, podcasts, or any other resources you utilize in order to boost your sales and boost your work success? I am a book geek. I have this background on, so you can't see my bookshelf and desk behind me, but I am a huge book geek. I would like to add some thoughtful ones to the resource guide, and everybody will get that. So I'll make a note to myself to add those to the resource guide to be so that you get them. Um, I'm not a big podcast listener because I just don't listen to podcasts myself. And I will never, ever, ever be that person that starts a podcast because I just don't have the energy for it and I don't listen to them myself. I know there's a lot of inspirational ones out there, but I would say, like let me look into some and put some out there, but I would say that there's a ton of both aesthetic related for the sales and also more motivational on the other side. So I'll put a couple of those in the resource guide, and give you some recommendations for that. And it also depends on your position and your practice. There are some that are very general as well. So the books that I recommended that will come out in your resource guide, by the way, they have the hospitality mindset and creating memorable events. There's one called Setting the Table by Danny Meyer. It's all about hospitality mindset. And they do talk about what you do to make the customer happy, even when it seems like the customer is not always happy or can't be made happy. So that ties back to conflict resolution. So that might be one. And then The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. Creating memorable experiences, more about the hospitality mindset. But I'm going to add a couple more to to the resource guide for you guys. All right. Any other questions? Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you would have liked to learn more about or that you would like included in the resource guide? Or for the discussion again for Wednesday's discussion that we'll be sending out to everyone as well. We can let you know if there was additions made to that one. We will let people know if there were additions made to that one. All right. Well, thank you again so much for all of you joining us, especially for those of you that hung out all the way to the end. We've captured your information. We've put you in that drawing, and one of you is going to win a great patient experience training on us. And I hope whoever is snowed in that you thaw out and stay safe, and everyone's back to work very soon. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.